So, Republican Senator John Thune now joining us from South Dakota. He also serves on the Armed Services Committee. Up there on the Hill today, what are you hearing from your fellow Republicans? Why are you concerned about the exit strategy, since what the president is saying is the beginning of an exit strategy? In other words, they will reassess at the end of December 2010, and as Robert Gates assured the Armed Services and Foreign Relations Committees yesterday and the day before, that only means assessing the situation on the ground for a July 2011 transfer, the beginning of a transfer. Why is that what you're calling an absolute exit strategy?
Most of us, I think, were on the Armed Services Committee, were encouraged by what Secretary Gates and Secretary Clinton said with regard to that timeline, Andrea, but that was subsequently disputed by the White House. You had Robert Gibbs coming out and saying, no, this is a hard, fast deadline. And so right now there just seems to be a lot of conflict within the administration about what that really means. I think for most of us, the concern is that we don't send a signal to the Afghan people, to the Taliban, to our allies, to Pakistan, that this is something that we're just going to abruptly pull out and leave in 18 months. I think the question that we have to answer to the rest of the world is, do we have the resolve to get this done? And that's the question I think that the administration hasn't been very clear about answering, because they're sending all these mixed messages.
I know they've been trying to clarify it. Secretary Clinton again today at NATO. The allies were worried, we're told by a senior official who's been briefing them over the last couple of days, that this was some sort of a withdrawal date, and had to be reassured that it was not hard and fast. What do you think was going on there, Senator? Were they trying to, was the president in his strategy, for understandable reasons, trying to reassure the left wing of the Democratic Party while also holding true to his stated principles with the military and with the rest of his audiences, his foreign audiences?
My view is he was trying. He's being cross-pressured really hard because the political left in this country wants a date certain. They don't want to be there in the first place. And so I think he was trying to placate them by putting this off-ramp, or this so-called exit, in the plan. And yet, on the other hand, he knows that the right thing to do with regard to success in Afghanistan is to give the commanders what they've asked for. And so I think he's really torn, because he's trying to satisfy his political objectives here at home, but also recognizes that the national security interests of our country and our allies can't be addressed if we aren't committed to this job, and committed to it in a way that signals to our allies and to the rest of the world that we are going to succeed and that we're going to win.
You can understand those cross pressures. Maybe a little creative diplomatic ambiguity is what's called to order here. But when you look at the Gallup polling today, it shows that a majority of Democrats and Republicans support the president's strategy. 58% of Democrats support the strategy, although a considerable number say that the surge is too high. At the same time, 12% agree with that timetable. But of Democrats, Republicans, I should say, 55% favor the strategy, 18% say the surge is too high, 12% agree with the timetable. So on those numbers show that majorities of both Democrats and Republicans favor what the president announced.
I think there's broad support across the country. There is on Capitol Hill. Republicans have been very supportive of the president on Afghanistan. We were worried for a long time that he was not willing to make a decision, not willing to move forward. But now that he has, I think you'll have broad support among Republicans. And I think most Democrats on Capitol Hill, and hopefully most people across the country. The hard left, of course, as we said earlier, is not going to support this. But I think the reason for that is people understand the threat that allowing Afghanistan to become a sanctuary, a safe haven for terrorists to plan, train, and execute attacks against the United States or our allies is a real threat to our national security interests. And they realize we need to succeed. Our commanders have laid out a plan to succeed, and the president needs to follow through with that. And he needs to do it with a commitment and a resolve that makes clear that the United States is there to finish the job.
Now, I'm presuming that those who are interested in the military taking a more aggressive role would be pleased with what the New York Times reported, and what I've been able to confirm is accurate, that the president also authorized a great expansion of the covert Predator attacks with Hellfire missiles against Taliban and al-Qaeda targets in neighboring Pakistan.
I think that the border areas, as we all know, are really critical to our success there. That's the portal that these terrorists use, these militants use to get back and forth between Afghanistan and Pakistan. And we've had great success with some of the Predator operations that have been undertaken in that area. And I think that's something, too, that would be welcomed by most people who are following closely what's happening there and realize that we've got to get control of that area in order to be successful.
John Thune, thank you very much for joining us
Thanks,
from the Senate
Andrea.
today. Have a good weekend.